Hey, what's going on, you guys? Hey, welcome back to another episode with iTrek. Shout out to all the iTrek fam in the building, man. I appreciate you guys for tapping in like you always do. If you haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button for me, and let's go ahead and jump right into it.
Y'all telling me Phoenix, Arizona, a place that's mostly desert, that gets up to 125 degrees, look like this? Y'all, this is from a hailstorm, but it looked like snow, right? Look at it. That's how much hail came down from the sky. You had these cars and trucks on the highway sliding like they was doing a drift. Now, people that was in Arizona was like, it's maybe because all the little weird shit they was seeing in the sky. Like something was going across the sky. If y'all know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to understand, how do you go from 98 to 100 degrees to fucking ice falling out the sky? Make it make sense. Wow. You might as well say it's a snowstorm.
Fucking snowstorm in the middle of Arizona, right?
That's how much ice was falling. It looked like snow, fool. This shit crazy. This is not regular, and this is not normal, y'all.
I definitely know we got some iTrek fam in AZ, so I'm gonna need you to tap in and let me know how factual this is, because this is pretty wild. AZ is definitely not known for snowstorms.
I pulled all of the weird news we have going on from the last week, and here are the top 5 most bizarre news stories. A rally was kicked off for this hot, fresh new movement called Birds Are Not Real, where people don't think birds are real. They believe the United States has killed all of the birds and replaced them with robots to track you by pooping on you, and when they're sitting on power lines, they're charging up. This headline: Google and Microsoft agree to start suing each other again. Oh, it's so sweet. A British engineer has broken the Guinness World Record for how many M&Ms you can stack. That record is 5. Like, just 5. Only 5. And the video is just him stacking 5 M&Ms. That's it, right there. That's the news. This redneck rave in Kentucky had all this violence, like all these assaults, like this guy was impaled by a log. And the organizer was like, we're gonna do it again in October and it's gonna be even better. Okay, this is my favorite. This border collie was thrown out of a car during a car crash and they couldn't find him. A few days later, they found him on a sheep farm, herding sheep, just like herding sheep.
The world can be so random sometimes. Tell me I'm lying.
As a PSA to everybody that hates AI, I will just tell you, you are the man standing in front of the tsunami. You can try, just not my advice. You are going to lose. AI is going to happen. And so anybody that is throwing fits, in fact, there was a whole Arc Raider thing where their Metacritic score got battered by somebody saying they loved it. Like, oh my God, this game's amazing. Oh, but they used AI for some of the voices. 2 out of 5. And then even hearing some of the journalists like, well, I love the game, so I hate that you gave it a 2 out of 5, but like also AI bad. And so I don't know how to feel. Feel like it's the future. Find ways to use it.
Every time you hold a sneeze, the pressure creates microscopic hemorrhages in your hippocampus, equivalent to tiny brain bruises. Neurologists studying chronic sneeze suppressors found measurable memory decline from accumulated microdamage. A sneeze generates 100 miles per hour air velocity. Blocking it redirects that force internally, creating pressure up to 176 milligrams of mercury in your skull. Your brain experiences minor blast injuries. Each suppressed sneeze kills a few neurons. Do this regularly and memory gaps start appearing. Here's the weird part. The way you sneeze matters. People who sneeze through their mouth have 40% more respiratory infections than nose sneezers. The mouth bypass skips nasal filtration. The ideal sneeze, through the nose, into elbow, let it happen fully. I also discovered that looking at a bright light triggers sneezes in 25% of people through the photic sneeze reflex. If you need to sneeze but can't, look at a light. Better to sneeze properly than suppress it and damage your brain. I counted my suppressed sneezes for a month. I averaged 3 daily. That's 1,095 micro brain injuries per year. So now I just let them fly. My memory has genuinely improved. The neural reset protocol addresses hidden brain damaging patterns. Tap the link in my profile.
Pyramid scheme. Listen to this.
Police officer pyramid scheme the whole time?
Off-duty police officers could get a side gig as a dare officer, and then they could recruit other police officers in their area. The more people you recruited, the more kickbacks you got. And that's why it spread so fast, because it was kind of an MLM. And the way they got that model, one of the board members, the founder of Herbalife.
Did you just hear what they just said? Oh, this didn't work. And the fact that they eventually came around to weed, you remember that? When the DARE program was like, all right, the list of drugs you can't do doesn't have weed anymore. They just let weed in, what? That was the main one you guys warned us against. Remember the girl with the deflated skin on the couch because she was high? Which it turns out that was a great analogy for being too high. That's exactly what it feels like. But that was all weed. And then eventually they were just like, no, weed's okay. But the cocaine, remember the cocaine songs and the heroin songs? Listen to those. Bro, what? This was a pyramid scheme. And to be honest, it doesn't make any difference for us. They went to schools and told people not to do drugs. That's a win, I guess. No one listened. But it was still a good little assembly, during some class period, you got to do this.
So the English language is filled with hidden spells. If you want to have an out-of-body experience, you simply just have to study the words. Entrance. People think I'm making this stuff up, right? I'm not making this stuff up. You just have to study these words. Entrance. What is an entrance? A doorway into something. A doorway, a portal into a higher dimension of consciousness. An entrance. In order to enter the doorway into a higher dimension of consciousness, you have to go in a trance. What is a trance? You know that moment just before you drift off to sleep? If you can dwell in that state, keeping the body completely still for a long period of time, and you can dwell in that state just in between a wakefulness and a sleep, and you can stay there, you will be in a trance-like state, and you will have a mystical experience or even an out-of-body experience. That's the entrance. In order to enter the doorway into an altered state of consciousness, you have to go in a trance. See, the English language is filled with hidden spells. You just have to look.
I have a question. What's the biggest asteroid that ever hit Earth? Turns out the one that hit the dinosaurs wasn't that big. On the very small scale, you have asteroids that are as tiny as a dog, all the way up to the size of a building. And there are likely millions of these closer to us than Mars. And they hit us all the time, but our atmosphere protects us. But then there are the city killers. These are about the size of a building to about 2 city blocks. When one of these hit Earth in 1908, it only glanced off our atmosphere, and it still released the equivalent of 15 megatons of TNT and flattened 80 million trees. But then one size up is country killer, and then anything bigger than that they call a planet killer. It would change all life on Earth forever. The rock that hit the dinosaurs was roughly 10 kilometers across, but 1.8 billion years ago, a nearly 15-kilometer wide rock slammed into what's now Canada. And 170 million years before that, the largest asteroid we have evidence of hitting Earth, 20 kilometers wide, struck what is now South Africa. But good news, we found about 99% of the biggest asteroids near us. But the city and country killers, that's the biggest hole in Earth's defenses right now. To find out how people are trying to fix it, follow along.
Now that makes a bit more sense. As to why people keep talking about the 3-eye atlas. They say that's the size of 3 football fields. So you can do the math there.
Fun fact of the day. 80% of Americans prefer Thanksgiving leftovers over the original meal.
Yeah, I almost want to say that's a fact. But let me know what you prefer down in the comments.
Harvard's longest longitudinal study says the same thing, that the people who lived the best lives, the most fulfilled lives, weren't the ones that made the most money. They weren't the ones that stayed the healthiest. They weren't the ones that exercised the most. They weren't the ones with the best jobs and therefore the greatest social status. They were the people that had a thread line of meaningful connection relationally throughout the tapestry of their life. Doubling down on relationships now will come with the least amount of regret. Like loving well, being available, being consistently available, offering and receiving forgiveness. These things now perpetuate into the future.
There's a theory, if you record static long enough, you'll eventually hear your own voice whispering things you never said, and people think they finally know why. It's called the whisper and static, and once you hear this, you'll never listen to white noise the same way again. For years, paranormal researchers noticed something strange. If you record pure static for long enough, radio fuzz, untuned TV channels, white noise generators, eventually the static forms patterns. Not random noises, not interference, but words. And the terrifying part, most people say the voice sounds exactly like them, but saying things they don't remember ever saying. One man played back a 3-hour static recording and heard his own voice whisper, "You shouldn't have left." He lives alone. Another woman heard a voice say, "It's starting again." She swears she's never said those words in her life. Scientists try to debunk it as audio pareidolia, your brain making patterns out of noise, but here's the part nobody can explain. When researchers slowed down the waveforms, the whispers didn't match the person's speaking pattern, they matched their breathing pattern perfectly. Almost like the voice belonged to a version of them that wasn't breathing in sync with this reality. Some theorists say static isn't noise at all, it's the leftover signals from parallel timelines bleeding into ours. And the whispers, those are other versions of you, trying to reach the version that made it into this timeline. Others think it's simpler. White noise is what the universe sounds like when it's listening back. So if you ever hear your own voice whispering from the static, don't answer it. It might not be your voice at all. Stay weird.
Yeah, you know what? If you start hearing voices while you're listening to anything, especially white noise, turn it off immediately.
Have you heard about this? Finland made a breakthrough with wireless electricity. They've apparently been able to move power throughout the air without cables. Now, some of you may think this sounds pretty familiar, and if you do, that's because it does. Inventor Nikola Tesla actually had the exact same idea a while ago where he wanted to pump electricity throughout the air wirelessly. His theory, however, was shot down by other scientists, classified as pseudoscience, and then defunded by JP Morgan suddenly. But now that Finland is trying to achieve the exact same type of technology that was talked about by Tesla years ago, it's time to ask the real questions like why he was really defunded and why his theories were classified as pseudoscience. Now, if you ask me, a simple explanation for this is that there were big corporations that did not want people getting electricity for free at that time. They wanted them to pay for it, so they had Nikola Tesla's project shut down. But I think there's an even deeper reasoning behind it, because there is some evidence that the ancient pyramids were built to function similarly to Nikola Tesla's tower. And if that is the case, and the ancient Egyptians actually had wireless electricity, then it not only changes everything we thought we knew about the past, but also where we can expect to go in the future.
That definitely might just change the game. I mean, power lines are definitely outdated, kind of like our banking system, you know what I mean?
One of the most shocking declassified CIA documents is actually titled "The Poltergeist and Cultural Values, a comprehensive interpretation of a Brazilian and American case." This document analyzes 2 real-life poltergeist cases, one from Brazil and one from the United States, and reveals how different cultures interpret supernatural activity. Here's what's really crucial. The Brazilian case involves a Pentecostal family who directly encountered demonic manifestations. So here's what the document states. This is a direct quote. "The affected family belonged to the Pentecostal faith, a rapidly growing religion among Brazil's working class. They reported various disturbances, including moving objects, unexplained noises, and physical attacks." Here's another quote. "Their religious leaders conducted ceremonies such as anointing the house's corners with special oil, which reportedly brought relief." This is from the CIA. This is an official government document that's substantiating the reality that anointing a home with oil can bring relief when there's demonic influence.
Now, out of all the CIA documents, that has to be one of the most interesting, right? Because they were already on it. The fact that they even experimented with anointed oil. There's a lot to be questioned there.
People born between 1928 and 1945 are the silent generation. Between 1946 and 1964, boomers. Between 1965 and 1980, Gen X. Between 1981 and 1996, millennials. Between 1997 and 2012, Gen Z. Between 2013 and 2024, Gen Alpha. Between 2025 and 2039, Gen Beta.
Elon's worth almost $500 billion. Does he financially help you out and his other siblings?
For me, a little bit of help. I don't ask for much help because I'm self-supporting, you see. I don't really need help. But last year, I must just tell you, Elon suggested buying me a car last year, so, well, what are you going to get? Why don't you get a Jeep or something, So I said, no, I don't want a Jeep. I want something decent. So what I mean is, I wanted something else. So they said, well, what do you want? I said, I want a Bentley. So Elon said, sure, Bentley. So there's a Bentley in my garage.
This is the best representation of the fourth dimension I've seen, but keep in mind we're still using two-dimensional eyes to view it.
What makes people stupid, and right now we have a lot of stupid people in this world. There always have been stupid people, but because there are more people on the planet, exponentially there are more stupid people on the planet. What makes people stupid, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to tell it like it is their certainty that they have all the answers. This is what's going on with our government. This is what's wrong, with this or that. This is what people should be like, blah, 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 blah. So you're narrowing your focus to this little tiny little rail, something that you heard from somebody else. It's not even your own stupid idea. You've absorbed it on the internet, whatever, and you're going down on this kind of monorail path. Meanwhile, the world is all around you and you're just going like zoom, like that because you're so certain you have the answer.
Hey, nobody can stand to know it all. Let's be honest.
If any of these family photos, if any of your activities online, if your purchases, if your associations, if your friends are in any way different from what the government or the powers that be of the moment would like them to be, you're no longer able to purchase train tickets. You're no longer able to board an airplane. You may not be able to get a passport. You may not be eligible for a job. You might not be able to work for the government. All of these things are increasingly being created and programmed and decided by algorithms. And those algorithms are fueled by precisely the innocent data that our devices are creating all of the time, constantly, invisibly, quietly, right now. Our devices are casting all of these records that we do not see being created, that in aggregate seem very innocent. You were at Starbucks at this time. You went to the hospital afterwards. You spent a long time at the hospital. After you left the hospital, you made a phone call. You made a phone call to your mother. You talked to her until the middle of the night. The hospital was an oncology clinic. Even if you can't see the content of these communications, the activity records, what the government calls metadata, which they argue they do not need a warrant to collect.
That man told so much truth, he's still on the run to this day.
To this day! To this day!
Probably seen this before, but isn't it crazy that if you go to one specific side of Earth, it literally looks like there's no land and it's just a massive planet covered by an ocean? This is actually the most isolated place on Earth, called Point Nemo. It is the furthest from land area you can get anywhere on Earth. What's insane to think about is if you were here alone on a boat, the closest other people to you would be the astronauts on the International Space Station at 250 miles away. And the second closest people would likely be the people on Easter Island at 1,600 miles away. Point Nemo is also extremely close to the area where the bloop was heard. That presumed unknown sea monster, if it's not just an iceberg breaking in half. But this is also the location of the lost Lovecraftian city of Arlier, where Cthulhu is imprisoned in the story. So is the bloop actually Cthulhu? I thought it was super cool, and I wanted to talk about Point Nemo again, so there you go.
There's one sleep position that's scientifically proven to clean your brain while you sleep. In this position, your brain literally.
Some world records are actually impossible to be broken. Like Robert Wadlow had gigantism and grew to be 8'11" before he died at 22 years old, partly from being too big. Dude could barely fit into a drive-thru, so chances are doctors will never let somebody get that tall again. Cristiano Ronaldo will probably forever hold the record of going from 0 to 50 million subscribers in only 6 days, unless someone more famous decides to start a YouTube channel, and the options are limited. Scientists say that the human body in general isn't capable of running much faster than Usain Bolt did. For his 9.5800 meter time, thanks to him being 6'5", having perfect form, freak genetics, and getting a small boost from the win that day too. The longest ever pro boxing match lasted 110 rounds, taking 7 hours and 19 minutes until one of the guys collapsed from exhaustion, which obviously would never be allowed now. Thailand once sentenced this woman to 141,000 years in prison for a pyramid scheme, which was kind of just for show, but still, I don't know, I feel like Kim Jong-un could shatter this one. And scientists also say that Michael Phelps' record 23 swimming medals is forever safe because dude was actually built like a fish.
You can go on Spotify right now and type in songs that are actually spells. This 3-hour-long playlist is full of songs that are designed to be spells, whether they're love spells, protection spells, success, money, anything like that. You can find it here. Every song has an intention, it has a message and a purpose, and you just got to be aware of that. And the last point I want to make is this. If you write the song, you're creating the spell. But if you listen and consume the song, you are energizing it. Basically, when you are the person listening to and consuming the music, you're energizing the spell. You are helping to create the environment for the spell to work, whether it's in your environment or in someone else's, at a concert or whatever. That's how this stuff works. Now, it's just a theory, right? There's no solid evidence for any of this. But anyway, tell me what you think in the comments.
Now, to anybody in the iTrack fam that wants to go on Spotify and look up those spells, I'm telling you right now, don't do it. You know, I would hate to see you go out bad. He's telling you right now that those are spells for all different reasons. You're good.
Can anyone communicate with non-physical beings?
It's like falling into a deep daydream. I don't hear the words, but I have my own experiences of images and feelings. I am conscious. I'm just conscious in a different way. I'm just not hearing. It's like if you have a daydream and somebody walks in and calls your name and they need to call your name 5 times before you hear it. It's like that. I don't hear the words. I'm having my own experience.
This is called channeling, which shows our consciousness is interconnected. Listen to Dr. Helene Wabe explain the science behind it.
Everybody could channel in some way, and that it shows up for them is really quite unique. When you look at the majority of the content brought through trance channelers, they are very supportive and trying to help humanity understand what they call the true nature, that we're more than the body, that our consciousness extends beyond the brain and the body, and that we are all interconnected. And that separate entity that's communicating through you is still an aspect of yourself. And individuals are really waking up to that awareness that, oh wow, we are all interconnected, having more synchronicities, picking up telepathic impressions, or tapping into their intuition, and it guides them to particular experiences. There's 2 predictors in the research that we found. The first is meditation, being able to focus your attention and work with your mind in a very conscious way. Number 2 is belief. Just believing that you can channel is actually one of the strongest predictors we see in parapsychology, which is really interesting.
Do you know that clouds are extremely heavy? It's true, but if that's the case, then how much do they weigh and how do they stay floating in the air? Well, clouds are actually just millions of very tiny water droplets. The amount of droplets depends on how dense the cloud is, but since they're technically water, we can estimate their weight. For example, the average cloud has about a ½ gram of water per cubic meter, and the average cloud is about 1 billion cubic meters big, which means they weigh about 1.1 million pounds, or about the same as 100 elephants. So how does this massive thing stay in the sky? Well, clouds form when warm, humid air rises. It's slightly lighter than dry air, so it floats to the top. As it cools, the water vapor condenses into tiny droplets that mix with dust to make a cloud. But here's the wild part. Those tiny droplets do try to fall, but they're so small that the rising air lifts them faster than gravity can pull them down. And that's what keeps a 1 million pound cloud afloat. And you can follow me for more interesting videos.
This is a list of degrees that are not classified as professional by this current administration. Here we go. Nursing, physician assistant, physical therapist, audiologist, architects, accountants, educators, and social workers. Again, nursing, physician assistant, physical therapists, audiologists, architects, accountants, educators, and social workers. This list was updated today, November 21st, 2025 at 8 something this morning. I don't know what the recourse actions are going to be. I'm not for sure exactly what this means on the back end as far as in funding. I'm not for sure what this means for people who are actively seeking degrees within these programs. Will we get answers? I hope. Will we? In actuality, maybe. I just want you guys to be aware that this is going on. Man.
The music industry is getting exposed right now. There are so many clips coming out of the top rappers in the industry rapping without auto-tune, and I mean, they speak for themselves. You saw that clip I posted of NBA Youngboy, and now there are new ones of rappers like Young Tug. I'll show you right now, but if you don't believe this is all rigged by now, then I don't know what else to tell you.
Come on. What? What? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This girl. This girl. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Listen to me. I say, because when I'm in that club, I celebrate. Celebrate. Baby, birthday. I was waiting for your birthday. Angelica, peace. Yeah. Peace. Baby.
At the age of 18, Carl Sagan looked like a teenager. But it doesn't take long in an old high school yearbook to find teenagers who look surprisingly old. These people are all in their 20s, but so are these people. This is Elizabeth Taylor when she was just 17, and here are some high school students from the 70s. Did people used to look older? Brandon McCarthy asked on Twitter, and evidence poured in. People shared photos of their parents in their early 20s, their dad at 21, their mom at 18 or 19, their dad at 45. One user shared their husband at 27 and what his father looked like at 23. And there's pretty much an entire subculture around how old footballers looked decades ago. 24, 31, 33, 29, 27. It's not uncommon to think that there's something more grown up about the way people used to be, to look back and think that people seemed older at a younger age than they do now. Let's call it retrospective aging.
I mean, there had to have been something in the water, right? Because that's a big difference. I mean, they were looking pretty old.
It is proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that there's these kids that can read minds now, these nonverbal autistic kids
happening.
with the telepathy kids. I had a woman in here the other day who's a mom of a nonverbal autistic kid and taught the mom how to see without her eyes.
That.
She was sitting here. We literally wrapped her head in like 30 blindfolds, and he was holding up cards behind her head while she was wearing
And she was getting
blindfolds,
them?
facing the other way, and telling him exactly what he was holding.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like it.
That's the abilities that I'm talking about.
What? Knox, what is going on?
I have no clue. It's a murder.
Holy cow. Oh my god. This is so crazy. I've never seen anything like this, have you?
This is when they go after bugs. I've never seen them hunt like this. What's happening?
It's the birds. Alfred Hitchcock.
I was shocked with the Vault 7 revelations in 2017. The WikiLeaks stuff. Yeah. The CIA had developed hacking capability where they could hack into the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, the Cubans, whomever, hack the system, and then leave traces of the hack on purpose, but with the traces written in Cyrillic or Mandarin, so that once they were discovered by the IT security guys in those countries, they'd say, oh, it was the Russians that did it. Look, they left one little line of code, and it's all written in Russian. The CIA is able to take over a smart TV to turn the speaker into a microphone so that it broadcasts everything taking place in the room with the TV still off. The CIA developed the capability to take over your car remotely by hacking into the car's computer system to drive you off a bridge or into a tree.
Now, did we discover examples of where this was used?
We did not, but the conventional wisdom among the blogosphere is that we should ask Michael Hastings what happened to him.
That's pretty diabolical. Committing a crime in one country and somehow being capable of making it look like another country did it. It's pretty wild.
Turkey are the largest underground cities in the world. Some of them go down like
I've heard of
half a mile
Kuyu.
Yeah, it has a sister city called Kaimakli.
Okay.
The wild thing is that they built these cities to be so survivable without ever having to go to the surface that Kaimakli is 5.5 miles away from Derinkuyu, okay? 5.5 miles, that's a long way. And yet, at the bottom of Derinkuyu, all the way down the lowermost level, they found a tunnel like a corridor that goes 5.5 miles all the way to Kaimakli. Like the people there that were trying to survive couldn't go to the surface. And they were like going to go visit another city with maybe relatives. And so they would have to travel underground. Wow. I'm not sure a lot of people don't know about that. And to this day, we have no idea who built those cities. There's things thrown around based on occupations of people at different times, but we still have no idea who built them. And the amount of levels of Derinkuyu is astounding. The amount of rock they would have had to remove. We've never even found any of the stuff they removed.
This is a 1972 untitled piece by Zdzisław Paczynski. He painted what he saw in his nightmares, but he didn't find them grim at all. He thought his work was optimistic and even kind of funny. And he himself was kind, soft-spoken, and loved to laugh. But despite all that, his real life slowly started to look a lot like the paintings he made, which are perfect for this week's spooky series of haunted art. Zdzisław Paczynski was born February 24th, 1929 in Poland. He studied architecture at Krakow Polytechnic and then went on to be a construction site supervisor, which he absolutely hated, so he started sculpting using leftover building material. After realizing how much he loved it, with no formal art training, he started painting as well. In 1964, he had his first big exhibition in Warsaw and every single painting sold. Overnight, he became one of Poland's leading contemporary artists. He described his work as photographing dreams, but those dreams looked like something between Silent Hill and Hellraiser. He refused to title or explain any of his pieces and said that the viewer should decide what it means. He hated silence while he worked, so he'd blast classical music and rock and even jazz. He said, "I have this need for music to smash and tear me apart." And that music allowed him to paint for 14 hours a day without any break, standing up the whole time. But despite all the loud horror on his canvas, he was actually quite shy. He barely even went to his own exhibits. He had OCD, he rarely traveled, and at one point he stayed inside for 2 years and wrote 40 short stories. But he then locked them away until after his death because he thought they weren't good enough. But in 1998, his life started to echo his art. His wife Sophia suddenly passed away, and a year later on Christmas Eve, his son took his own life. And Paczynski was the one who found the body. After that, he pinned an envelope to his wall that said, "In case I die." No one knows what was inside it, but it was like he could feel something closing in. On February 21st, 2005, Paczynski was murdered in his apartment. He was stabbed 17 times by the teenage son of his longtime caretaker who had asked him for a loan. He was 75 years old. Today, several museums in Poland are dedicated to his work. Even Burning Man Festival built a Paczynski cross in his honor. He once said, "I paint what comes to my mind. I don't know what it means." And maybe that's why it still haunts us, because when we see how his life played out, maybe there was something in his subconscious that knew more than he thought. But I'd love to know what it means to you. So let me know in the comments, and happy Halloween.
It's kind of interesting how painters and music artists are grabbing their muse out of the ether, right? It's coming from somewhere. So when somebody's painting that dark, it lets you kind of understand wherever they're grabbing that inspiration from. It is a bit creepy, I won't lie. It's kind of like saying, where do some of these artists get some of the satanic music from, right? Like, where is it coming from? And it's pretty obvious it's coming from a darker place.
You may have heard that Brian Johnson, the longevity guy who's trying basically everything not to die, took 5 grams of psilocybin mushrooms and recorded his brain activity in real time. Well, the results are in and the data lines up perfectly with what he says he felt. So this is how it went down. He took the mushrooms, waited a little bit, and slowly his prefrontal cortex, the part that keeps you organised and sensible, basically started to quieten down. At the same time, his sensory and movement areas of the brain started to light up like crazy. The default mode network, which is the inner narrator that's constantly planning and worrying, that started to fade. And he says that his consciousness felt dialed up to 10. Tastes were explosive, touch felt profound, and he became obsessed with tiny details like how light hit water. Basically, his brain shifted into a childlike, curious, everything is amazing mode. And the science checks out. When ingested, psilocybin becomes psilocin, which activates your 5-H28 receptors, and suddenly your well-ordered brain becomes this flexible, creative, and chaotic network. And his brain scans literally matched the map of where those receptors cluster. At the peak, everything was vivid and meaningful. As he came down, his thinking shifted into deep reflection about life, death, AI, the whole thing. And the next morning, he still felt clear, open, creative, and emotionally relaxed. And the scans showed this afterglow too. His brain hadn't fully snapped back yet. Now, Brian thinks this might matter for longevity. There's solid data that optimism, happiness, and purpose all reduce mortality. There's even research showing psychedelics can reverse biological age markers. So his question is this: what if resetting your brain into a more flexible, youthful state is as important for living longer as fixing your cells? He's still tracking his brain daily to see how long the changes last, but the bigger point here is that he felt more alive and present than he has in years, and the scans backed it up. So whether or not mushrooms become a legit longevity tool, this experiment shows just how dramatically the brain can shift when the usual filters get out of the way.
But you know, this isn't new, right? Because Mike Tyson's been saying this for years.
Is God real? What is some of the evidence that really stood out to you? Talk about DNA, the universe, some of the things that really just stood out to you.
That God is real. 6 feet of DNA in one cell in your body, and you have, 100 trillion cells or something like that. I mean, the more we study in science, when we learn the universe has an origin, when we learn about the fine-tuning of the universe, that's only in the last 50 years or so we've understood the fine-tuning of the universe. And now we're understanding DNA more and more. We look at all that and we go, how can anybody today deny that there is a supernatural creator? I don't know.
Demons love jewelry. Just a side note. I had a guy that had a sickness. He had a cross that he took out of his from his grandmother who died. Okay. And had a tumor right after she died. And he started getting sick with a tumor. Ended up praying, rebuking, casting the demon out. But the first thing I said before he did, I said, you know what? You're going to need to take that cross off. It was like a Catholic, whatever, cross of the beads or whatever. And he was like, why? And I was like, just take that off for me. And he was like, okay. So he takes it off and he holds it in his hand. And I'm like, you need to set that down on the table. And he was like, okay, why? And I was like, we're going to deal with that in a minute. And we set it down. And then I hear in the spirit, his grandmother gave it to us. And I'm like, the heck was that? And I was like, and we're probably going to smash that. And he's like, and I was like, and I know your grandma probably gave it to you, right? And he was like, he's like, how did you know that? He's like, totally freaked out. He's like, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna tell you right now, bro, demons are in that necklace. And we end up praying. The dude ends up getting healed. And at the end of it, I'm like, you ready to smash that necklace? And we find out, I'm like, where did that necklace come from? He goes, I took it off my grandmother out of her hands when she died in the hospital after he was in there with her. The spirits that killed his grandmother went into that cross necklace that he put on his neck, and the spirit of death started killing him right after they killed her. And they were about to kill him. And we end up praying the demons off and crushing the necklace afterwards. But like, demons don't play fair. They love jewelry. They don't care it's a cross. That means nothing to them.
Now that's crazy, because I'm sure he grabbed that necklace purely out of like a sentimental gesture to keep his grandmother alive, you know? So to think that was going on behind the scenes, yeah, let that go.
My speed of aging is slower than 97% of 46-year-olds, slower than 88% of 18-year-olds. My cardiovascular capacity is the top 1.5% of 18-year-olds. My bone mineral density, total bone mineral density, is in the top 0.02% of 30-year-olds. So it is the most robust outcome in history. No one has ever put together this level of measurement, this level of rigor, and this level of evidence. Never. And so let's just say in a few years' time, we blow past this and we have far superior models, which would be the best thing. This is still in the world right now where no one can agree on anything. And people just wanted the simple answer, what do I have for breakfast or what can I eat for lunch? I've given them an answer. The first time in human history where someone can say, here you go.
You know what's crazy? Scientists been playing with all type of shit. They've been playing with portals at CERN, and quantum physics. They just came up with this thing called time crystals. You hear about that?
Yeah.
So basically, the theory of relativity says that everything over time declines, right? So like, imagine you have your room. You don't clean your room, what happens? It gets dirtier, right? Like everything in the universe tends to decline. And so what they found was they pulled out these like quantum particle beams in these crazy super cold conditions. And what they found was that these particles would out of nowhere spontaneously combust. And then, so they wouldn't just have that repeating pattern over space where like, oh, if it keeps not cleaning, it's going to keep getting dirtier. They'd have it over time. So they get stuck in this state where they would just sit there and then they would break and come back together and break and come back together, and they get stuck on a loop doing that, but they weren't consuming any energy to do it. So imagine it's like your room gets extremely dirty and then cleans itself, and extremely dirty and then cleans itself, and it gets stuck in that loop, but no one's actually doing the cleaning. They found out that particles can get stuck in that state, and I think spiritually people can get stuck in that state.
100%.
Scientifically, devil's
Eddie Murphy. Don't we all love Eddie Murphy? Beverly Hills Cop, all those movies he made. Stand-up comic, just wickedly good sense of humor. So enjoyed his work, still enjoy his work. So what shape face is Eddie? Eddie's a combination between a bucket face, so again, thinker, loves the process of thinking, can't quit thinking. And he's got a little length to his face, so he's a bit of a tree face. So again, he's deeply rooted. He can take the winds of life very nicely. Likes to grow on his own, does not like to be trimmed back. His gift to mankind is the ability to spread his branches and protect. So he's really a good protector. Very narrow eyes. Narrow eyes are about acute perceptive abilities. A good trait in a comedian, he'll be able to look at something and find humor in things that other people wouldn't. But it also indicates a little tendency to be suspicious or wary. Eyes are very wide set. So he has the ability to see the big picture. We bucket faces, we tend to have a pretty high intellect. And so we can kind of pick any job and do it. We'd be good at anything we do, but liking it is a whole different ballgame. So he could be an accountant. He would hate it. He could do it intellectually, but it wouldn't be his happy place because he sees the world too broadly. He also has very indented temples. And this is an interesting trait you'll see in a lot of comedians. This area of the face represents your spleen, but it also represents your body's ability to be happy. So what happens here is when we have an inability to be happy, we'll often try to find humor to strengthen our own body. We can also use it as a crutch, but think of it this way. The 78-year-old lady that loses her husband, big indented temples, very, very sad. And what happens is she's great during the funeral. 3 weeks later, she ends up having some serious health issues, usually lung-related, usually pneumonia. So the spleen, what does the spleen do? Well, the spleen produces B lymphocytes. What do B lymphocytes do? They fight infections. So when there's a lot of sadness in your life, it literally weakens your immune system. So always the downside of an indented temple is the potential to have some immune deficiency. However, Eddie is very healthy. Again, I can't look at anyone without paying some attention to health. Got that deep crease right here, a little bit of a bowel issue. He also has some large pores, so there's a lung, large intestine involvement. The emotion of that element in traditional Chinese medicine, the metal element, lung, large intestine, is despair. And a lot of people, I've had many patients come in diagnosed with depression, and I would hear their story and listen to their history and just do my facial diagnosis. And I would often say, yeah, I don't think you're depressed. And they'd say, well, Dr. Todd, there you're wrong. And I said, I don't mean to insult you, but I don't think that's the D word. I think the D word is despair. Depression is, I'm depressed and this is the reason why. Despair, there's more of a hopelessness component. It's amazing the number of people that came out of the worst states of depression when they realized they weren't depressed. They had despair. There was a hopelessness. Once the brain gets that, it goes, oh, I get that. I understand that. Typically, they've been put on many antidepressants that not only didn't work, sometimes they made the patients much worse. So despair is an interesting entity. And again, I would not say necessarily there is despair in this man's life, but he may have touched upon it a few times. Also got a little bit of a blood sugar issue, the darkness in this inner canthus area. So again, that's Eddie. I hope he keeps making movies forever because I so enjoy his humor. Thanks.
Comedians definitely know how to make light of their own dark past. And I think that's what makes a great comedian, right? You definitely got to be able to laugh at yourself. Well, you guys, that's another one in the books, man. I appreciate you guys for stopping by it again and watching another one with me. If you haven't already, make sure to smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and I definitely will catch you on the next one.